Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Harris Bard for Pond Life Aquatics and Tropical Fish London. And in today's probably slightly shorter video, I'm going to be running you through some of the new additions we have to Northwest London's biggest and best aquatic centre. Let's get into it. Now, before I begin, I'm just going to preface this video with the fact that I've been off work for a few days this week, that losing my voice last week turned into a chest infection. So I have only been recovering in the past few days. So I'm going to keep this video relatively short, and I'm going to talk through all of the new additions we've had in this week, as opposed to going through the entirety of the fish room. There's also a few things that I'm really excited to share with you guys that have come in, but I want to keep them in a quarantine space for the next couple of weeks, just because they are quite special and I don't want anything to go wrong with them until they are ready to sell, and hopefully they will be ready to sell. But there are some very exciting things coming up in the next few weeks. But without further ado, let's get into it. As I've said in pretty much every previous video, we do things a little bit differently here at Pond Life Aquatics, where we try to structure our fish room continent by continent. And the reason we do that is because we think that it helps educate people on where their fish are from, and although it's not a direct indicator of what can be kept with what, it's relatively useful to be able to say to people, this is the water parameters that this fish is from. And although all of our fish are kept in London tap water, it's just a good idea for hobbyists to be able to pick species from a specific region. Additionally, we also have schools coming in every now and then, and it helps us to educate the kids that come in by being able to show them specifically each continent which each fish is from. And they seem to enjoy it, and our customer base seems to enjoy it. So that's the reason we do that. Now, the reason I'm sat down in front of the discus tank today is because we got in some absolutely beautiful Blue Cobalt Discus. These guys are tank bred in hard water, which, as I've said again in previous videos, is something that has come about in recent years, particularly for discus, where their wild variants for years and years were almost brown in coloration, very difficult to keep, where they needed extraordinarily soft water. In the Amazon basin, they have very little mineral content, and it made it very, very difficult to actually breed them in captivity. And then over the course of years, particularly with European breeders, particularly a lot of breeders in Germany, found ways to make breeding of discus much more accessible to a lot more people in the hobby, and it's why they've become not so exclusive and much more of a staple in the hobby, and something that people can actually breed themselves at home. Something really interesting about breeding discus at home, although I've never done it myself, I've done a hell of a lot of research on it because it's something I would love to do one day, is for years people thought that you had to replicate the exact parameters that they had in the Amazon. So super low mineral content in the water, super soft water. But what a lot of these breeders found when selectively breeding fish that were more and more tolerant of hard water, what they needed to do was, interestingly enough, only flood the tank in literally the 45 minutes after the eggs are laid with that kind of soft water. They call it soft flushing, I think, or soft blasting, where the eggs themselves need that for the 45 minutes after they are laid. And then the discus can actually just survive in hard water, particularly hard water strains. And because of that, we have these beautiful, beautiful strains of hard water discus. And we've got, again, some more beautiful Blue Cobalt Discus in stock. And they are just so stunning. I come into the shop after we've been delivering koi today and doing a whole bunch of other jobs, which I'm very tempted to do like a day in the life of a pond life employee, going out and doing things. So let me know in the comments below if that's something you would like to see, what our day-to-day kind of looks like in terms of going out and servicing people's ponds. We've come back today and there's just these beautiful little discus in this tank, and they've settled in so nicely. Sometimes when fish travel in, they lose their color and they aren't quite as beautiful as you would expect them to be. And it takes a few days or weeks for them to really color up and get bold. But I think already having a shoal of discus in here that are already really settled and feeding really well, these guys have really just taken to eating food. I can literally sit and watch them grub up on this heater for ages. They are truly stunning. If I had a 300-litre tank or space for a 300-litre tank, I would definitely be trying to breed these guys, taking the time to grow them on from particularly like a juvenile space into adulthood, and then be able to selectively choose the breeding strains. I think it could be such an interesting project for so many people. So yeah, these are our hard water discus that have come in, and they're absolutely stunning. But we've still got a few more things in South America that I want to highlight as well. Some other beautiful species that have come in, although not quite as rare, and maybe not quite as special for some people. We have some absolutely stunning stir-by Corydoras and panda Corydoras in stock at the moment. They've come in today, and there was a few in last week that settled down, and I didn't mention them, I don't think, last week in the video. And again, Corydoras are just one of my favorite species ever. They are probably the complete opposite in terms of hardiness to discus. Whereas discus, you do need to have some idea with what you're doing in terms of keeping them. Corydoras are a lot more forgiving. I know so many people who their first fish that they have bred has been Corydoras, because they are just so tolerant and have been bred so much in the industry that they are super adaptable to a lot of different parameters. Obviously, you're going to have like your Venezuelan orange lasers that are going to struggle a bit more, but things like stir-by Corydoras, even things like Siamese Corydoras now, are obviously going to be much more readily bred. And so often we'll have people come in and say that they found eggs on the side of their tank, and it's because you can just breed corys in London hard water. And these guys are just so happy and vibrant. And again, it's one of those species of fish that when I come into the room after being out on jobs and get to just spend time looking at them, I'm looking at the Incolicana Corydoras behind you at the moment. It's just such a treat to be able to just enjoy the time in the room. We are looking incredibly good with our Corydoras at the moment. Obviously, there's our pygmy corys that are out of the quarantine space as well. I absolutely adore pygmy corys. They are one of those species, again, that I would love to breed at some point, and realistically, I absolutely could, and I probably will in the next couple of years. I want to get back into fish breeding because it was a real time in the hobby that I just loved, having tanks that were specifically for breeding different species. And I think pygmy corys in particular are that little bit of a challenge, getting pygmies to feed after they've spawned, just because the babies are so young, can occasionally be difficult. And I've heard a lot of people have struggled with them in the past. I would absolutely love to give them a crack. But our pygmy Corydoras, stir-by Corydoras, and all the corys that we already had in stock are doing absolutely amazingly. Additionally, in this tank here, we've had so many comments in the past week, and I feel like it would be remiss of me not to mention them in particular. Our white ancestors have just caught the eye of so many people coming into the store, and you can tell why just by looking at them. They're so full of character and so fun. And I know I've been talking a lot about breeding fish this episode. The pure whites and the calico colors and all the different types of ancestress that have come about in the past years of the hobby are so amazing. Particularly things like super reds and your whites and your long fins, just so interesting. And I feel like so many hobbyists do just want to breed things like that. Definitely think that fish keeping in general and hobbyist fish keeping and hobbyist breeding is just something that is going to become more and more of a thing as fish keeping becomes more and more accessible over the next few years. And I've seen a lot of people breeding in citrus for the first time, and it's great. So I'm loving these young juvenile white ancistrus. Next up in terms of new things this week is down in our Asian section, and it is our female Betta Splendids. Again, we keep selling through so many of these bettas, and you can absolutely just tell why looking at them. They are some of the most stunning fish that we've ever had in. The breeding strains that females have come to in the past few years in particular do make these female fighters look almost like placat, which for me, I love placat bettas. I think they are probably my favorite type of betta fish, fighting fish as it were. I absolutely love alien bettas and I would love to keep them one day. But in terms of your regular Betta Splendids, placats for me are just so special. I've got a little guy at home who I call Murder Bean for murderous reasons. But these guys are just so stunning. And I feel like a lot of people who keep sororities are just spoiled for choice at the moment in terms of how beautiful the female fighting fish strains are. These guys are just no exception. We've got some more in the quarantine space at the moment, and we'll be slowly moving them out. We don't want to overcrowd our sorority tank out here, just because, as a lot of you who keep female Betta Splendids know, they can be quite territorial and nippy. And although you can keep females together quite happily, you don't want to be just shoving them all into a single tank. You will end up with some frayed tails and potentially some fatalities. So we just want to avoid that as much as possible. And to do that, we've separated out the amount of fish that came in. And these ones out here are absolutely stunning. And I hope people will continue to enjoy them as much as we enjoy having them. Another thing that I won't waffle too much upon is the fact that we just got an absolutely insane amount of assassin snails in stock, which obviously if you're having issues with swim bladder snails, great addition to a lot of tanks. I find assassin snails are one of those species that a lot of people will use them just as a biological control for keeping their snail populations down. But I have kept them so many times in the past and have genuinely fallen in love with keeping them. They are a burrowing species and they are communal. They, like a lot of snails, like to dig into substrates. And what's interesting about assassin snails is they are non-hermaphroditic. They won't, like a lot of other snails, breed with themselves and just make a load of eggs. They need a male and a female to breed, and they will only lay a really small clutch at a time. So you won't end up having loads and loads and loads of snails, and breeding them is actually something that is quite rewarding and fun. So if you have loads of swim bladder snails that you want to get rid of, absolutely assassin snails are something that you should consider and definitely add to your tank. And they can be a lot more than just a biological control. They've got these gorgeous little shells and they do bundle up together and you can have a lot of fun with them. Now, down the end of our fish room, we got our lighting fully sorted, which I am so happy about. I do just want to say thank you to Superfish and Alistair for sorting us out with some very good quality and well-priced lighting that has just made this end of the shop looks so much brighter. It has just made these tanks pop so much more, and the colors on the cherry barbs in particular just look absolutely insane, and I keep getting lost looking at these guys. I think they are absolutely stunning. Yeah, I think that people are just going to find so much more enjoyment out of these tanks and the goldfish tanks because of the amount of light that they have now. In terms of new things, down the end of the aquarium, we have these absolutely stunning large red-cap orandas in stock. And I think I fell a little bit out of love with red-cap orandas for a while, or not just red caps, just fancy goldfish for a while. I think particularly since we got the fish room, I've just been obsessed with more and more different tropical species of fish. Every now and then there'll be something that reminds me of a different period in my life that I enjoyed different species of fish. These red caps remind me of just keeping fancy goldfish in my mum's tank for a long time, and they're absolutely stunning. They're super high grade. They've got these amazing little bobbles on their head. I'm just glad we have them in. We haven't had larger fancies in a while, and I think these two will kind of just add to the room in a really beneficial way. Now, in this space behind me, which is our Siamese fighting fish and Neocaradina tank space, there is some new fighting fish in, and obviously all the fighters that we had in last week, some of them are gone, but we still have some absolutely beautiful stock that have been here for a few weeks. We have one particularly beautiful half moon that's living in the El Capitan scape just here, which I've done a little bit of work on, but again, I've not really been here this week. I've just put CO2 back on it and cut it back a little bit, and it's looking much better. But there is something that I just want to talk about with this space. I feel like it's the last space in the fish room that is kind of letting us down, where every other section is really settling in now. We're starting to get a good variety of different species. We're able to accommodate them in the ways that we want to accommodate them. But I feel like this space in particular, it kind of just never had that. Asia on the left-hand side, where we keep our female Bettas Splendids and our glass catfish and other things like that, has really settled in and is exactly kind of where we want it to be. Obviously, there's always things that we want to improve on, but this space behind me, I feel like hasn't ever really settled. So let me know if you want an ongoing mini series of this. I've got plans for this section that I am going to start putting into action. This isn't Harris is gonna aquascape the big tank in the middle and then we put Crebensis in it kind of situation. This is just going to happen. We are going to be doing this in the next few weeks, where we're going to just be expanding this range. We're gonna be shutting down the aquascapes that are in the center. Maybe the little tree one I'm just gonna be redoing and putting on the rack that the El Capitan one is. That beautiful aquascape that was donated to us by a customer is going to probably live on top of this rack. I might even just get a taller rack, maybe slightly wider, that can accommodate some more aquascapes and some more hardscape and things like that. But this rack is going to be expanded. We are going to be using up some of the tanks that we have in storage to just really expand out so that we can keep as many different Siamese fighters as we possibly can in the best possible way. Additionally, we want to be getting new tanks made, or even make them ourselves. It's something that I've been toying with for a long time, where I want to have high-grade Neocaradina breeding stock that I've bred myself and done breeding programs with to make sure that they are that super high quality with the color through the legs. This space could be any of those things. I think realistically we will have it as a male Bettas Splendid area and just make sure that every single tank is the best it can possibly be. Because right now it's just a waste of space. It's got these lights that are just hanging down. It's got mishmash of different things, and realistically we want to do more with it. So if you want to see me work on that in the next few weeks, if you want me to do a mini series about it, let me know. Or you can just wait to see the stock videos and you'll see it update over time. In Australia, we got these absolutely beautiful peacock gudgeon in stock. They completely sold out after last week's video. A gentleman came in and bought the breeding pair, and we decided to restock because they are a species that we just genuinely love here at Pond Life Aquatic. They are just so cool to keep in nano aquaria. They've got these absolutely stunning colors and love to be in densely planted vegetation with slow moving water, and it just lends itself really nicely to low tech, easy to keep aquariums. And I think that they do just offer something that little bit different. Like everything in Australia, it's kind of beautiful in terms of things that I know I've kept. They are super diminutive and really fun to look at. I, again, would love to be keeping these guys at home, and I might do in the future. Really glad these guys have come in as nicely as they have. They've started feeding really, really well. Hopefully, the gentleman who came and bought the breeding pair will be looking to add a few more to his tank, or if someone just wants to come and take a few of these guys home, they are absolutely so worthwhile to keep in terms of fish. And then up in Africa, I did say we were going to be getting in new African cichlids, and we did. We got new Lake Malawis. We decided to only go with a small selection, and we didn't have any specific requests, and some of our absolute favorites here have always been the Dragon Bloods or the Peacocks. So we decided to go with a selection of different peacocks, and these guys have just come in absolutely beautifully. Luckily, we put them in, and as a lot of you who keep Malawi cichlids will know, tanks take time to find a hierarchy, and the tank found a hierarchy very quickly. We've not seen any really outlandish bullying like you can sometimes catch when you add new fish to a Malawi tank, particularly with peacocks occasionally. But this green peacock that has come in is one of my favorite looking fish that I've seen in such a long time. I was talking to my dad about it earlier, and he was saying how they truly are just like the marine species of freshwater. If people want to keep marine in a freshwater environment, they don't want to have to have skimmers and everything like that, but are still up for a little bit of a challenge. Lake Malawis are just so that. They have these amazing colors, they have these amazing behaviors, and yes, you have to keep on top of the amount of stocking and how often you clean the filters, just because you have to overstock the Malawis. But I can see why people would do it. I can see why people would find them absolutely worthwhile keeping. They are just such a stunning diversity of fish, and these peacocks are really just something that they are just a treat to look at, and I'm definitely going to spend a little bit more time after I finish filming today looking at them. And I think that's all from me here at Pond Life Aquatics this week. I'm sorry if the spiel and the tone was a little bit toned down than it usually is, and it was just a bit more of a talky video. I'll be honest, I'm still recovering, and there were just a few fish that I wanted to highlight that had come in, and there is another species of fish that I'm super excited that has come in, but I don't want to get anyone excited for them without just giving them a few weeks to really settle down and make sure they are okay, because they are quite special. If you enjoyed this kind of talking video, just me discussing fish and discussing things I know about fish, let me know. These are much more relaxed for me to make. I can just talk about different species. I can just discuss different tanks I have. If you want me to talk through tanks I have at home in this kind of similar way, then let me know. And let me know if you want me to be doing that mini series with setting up tanks, and also if you want to see us do out jobs. It's obviously a lot harder to film pond stuff, and I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but if anyone's interested in what our day-to-day looks like, then let me know, because it's something that we will happily do. I know I've been promising a back to basics video on algae for the past few weeks. I will get to it, it's just I've not filmed well. But for now, I hope you'll join me again next time for a slightly more upbeat video, and hopefully for a very rare fish species video next time for this pond life.